Hey, Kevin Inoue here from Fight Designer LLC, but you know that, right? That's why you're here. That's why you came back. So this is, again, an ongoing series because I've had a lot of people asking about these cheap kind of what I call spring blowback shell ejecting toys that are coming out of China on a range of sites. And I'll have actually a blanket post, I think, over on my Fight Designer channel where I talk more about specifically theater props and stage combat and movement and other things that are less specifically guns. Just about the overall thing, the phenomenon of these and kind of where that is as an industry. And to me, it really does kind of remind me of some of the early days of airsoft. And I am wondering if this is going to be kind of the next thing. And we're starting to see these different tiers develop of different levels. So as we do so, it is still kind of the Wild West. Some of these sellers are legit. Some of them are complete scams. Some of these props are great. And some of them are cute toys, I guess. So as I continue my series now, what I want to focus on now, and I think the website actually called these a SIG. Yeah, I don't know. This is basically, to me, reminiscent of some of the Glock ripoffs, the sort of Glock clones that we see coming from like Palmetto State Armory with their dagger, or the P80, like 80, it started with the whole like finish your own 80% receiver kind of thing as a way of making these, ghost guns. So to me, this is very similar to a Glock, and you can kind of see that if you look at, stick with our shell ejecting, right? Here's our shell ejecting Glock, and they call this an 18C. It's not, but it's basically a 17 with a switch added. So first off, I call shenanigans on this being a SIG. It's a Glock ripoff. These would often use the same internals as the Glocks. And this is actually kind of true of these replicas as well. If you look at the magazines and the rounds they use, here's the one from that Glock, and here's the one from the, let me see if they're interchangeable. Yep, goes in. Let's see if the shell works. Yep, yeah. So the magazines are also interchangeable, which means you could also use these if you wanted to get an extended magazine on your Glock. Oh, but it's not catching as well on the Glock. Interesting. The mag catch from the Glock mag works on this what they're calling a SIG, but not the other way around. It's a little bit deeper of a cutout on this green one than it is on the black one. I wonder if that's why it's not catching as well. No, doesn't feel. All right, so I take that back. I guess you can't use the extended magazines in your Glocks, but the rounds are the same. You can use these same rounds in your Glocks or in these things, and mostly what they come with are these kind of plasticky looking ones. But I will say one thing that I like about these models is you can, if you shop around, get some more metallic looking ones. And these will do a much better job of looking like actual brass when they eject. And they're basically interchangeable. So, if I put one of the more metallic ones in and one of the plastic ones underneath, you can really see the difference in how much they shine there. But they should cycle just the same. These do actually come to slide lock, which is nice. Slide release works. Shells eject. So yeah, for what they cost, it's kind of pretty cool that you can have basically a blowback mechanism without gas. It's just springs. Now, is it more fragile? Sure. And does it look cheap? Yeah, you can see the mold lines on all these. And there's some weird things. So let's get into some of the odd things first. Yeah, there's a visible spring, and I mentioned this on the Combat Master as well, because that's another one where there's a spring on the outside of the outer barrel here. And that's not something railguns would have, because for them the spring would be on the guide rod underneath here. I'm guessing this was just cheaper to make this way. So they found a way to make it cheaper. Can't blame them for that. And of course, you've got the last, what is that, like 3 or 3.5 inches, something of the barrel being this bright orange plastic. Now, what I have found is that if you just twist a little bit, you can take that right out. So for props use, it actually works without any barrel in there at all. But you could also just replace this with some other kind of tube. And again, if you don't want to shoot these stupid little plastic bullet things that it's designed to work with for props use, I don't want to launch projectiles. I don't want any projectiles anywhere near this. So you can just stick another tube in there, and I'll show you in a minute what I've done with some of these. So is this a decent option? Sure. Actually, I kind of like these. There are some things where they're, kind of giveaways. You can see these screws on the sides of the frame. Real firearms frames do not screw together that way. So those are something you'd probably want to adjust. Some of these things are just kind of molded in, like the takedown bit there. You can see inside the frame, if you look inside the trigger guard, you can see that it's just a lightweight hollow plastic frame. What would be solid in the back of the slide here is actually built into the frame. So it's kind of like a little guide for the slide. So you can see that, the back of the slide is actually kind of hollow. But honestly, you're only going to see that either when the slide is locked back or very briefly in motion. And when it's in motion, what are the chances you're going to notice? Really? Honestly? I mean, the fact that it's a different color, yeah, it's a bit of a giveaway, but you can paint that. So I'm not as worried about that. And, it's got a decent look. Downsides also, though, it's not a direct double of anything that I know of. And it's not exactly the same as any of the PSA daggers. It's at least not quite. And it's got these Strike Industries logos. I'm not aware of any exact model that Strike Industries makes that looks like this, but that doesn't mean there isn't one. We live in a heyday of firearms. There are so many models coming out right now because there's so many people buying, and not just buying one and then being happy with it, but like collecting or needing the newest and greatest. And so there's so many new firearms coming out, it's crazy. So there are some things, the magazine has this giveaway little like Pez dispenser thing, which makes it easier to load, but not something you'd have on a real firearm magazine. And the way that it's built, if you see it up close, you'll know it's not a real one. And the rounds, as with all of these, they've got these little springs in the front and a little button in the back. So if you wanted to launch these little projectiles, do I have any open ones here? I don't know if I do. I usually don't bother with them. Yeah, sometimes they're loose, sometimes they're like built into a little flashing thing like this. But the idea is that those clip into the front of the fake brass, and let's look at that one. Anyway, if you want to see, I've got a previous video where I show that. You can, they push into the front of the bullet, you push on what would be the primer, and that releases it, and the little spring just kind of shoots out the projectile. So, again, for props use, you don't want projectiles. Projectiles are bad from a safety perspective when we're using props. So, throw those out. Don't worry too much about the little spring thing. So if you were going to use this as a prop, things you'd need to do, definitely replace the barrel, probably try and cover up or paint over the spring or something. Ideally fill in some of these little holes, repaint it, figure out what it's a double of, what are you calling it, or is this just some kind of like sci-fi, near future, dystopian, whatever, and so they just have to look cool, and it doesn't really matter if they match anything real. I don't think these are super durable, which means you probably need some extras, but these are like $13 right now. You can buy a lot of these for the cost of a good gas blowback, or let alone a good blank gun, or a real firearm that's been professionally modified by a gunsmith to fire blanks. So, something worth thinking about. So here's one that I just started. I just did a quick job today and gave it a little paint job. So you can see kind of a before and after. And the barrel here, let me lock this back. I just did a quickie 3D print of a threaded barrel for an airsoft, although I rescaled it a little bit, actually more than I needed to. I made it smaller than I needed to. I could have printed it a little bigger. Actually, I could get some electrical tape to make it fit. But, now we have a better looking barrel than that bright orange thing there. I also filled in those holes in the side of the frame before painting so that we don't have the little screw holes there in the grip. They're just little dimples now, if anything, and painted the magazine. But, this is spray paint. And so then the other big question becomes, will it still work? And for the most part, yeah, it seems to. You want to have definitely a light touch if you're going to be spray painting these, because the more that it gets things gunked up, the less it's going to function. The more functioning parts that a prop has, the more things that can go wrong. And so one thing that could go wrong is it might not cycle anymore if it sticks too much. You can see here it does actually stick a little bit coming on the return. That just might need to loosen up a little bit now that it's been repainted. Does it still eject casings? Let's find out. Again, I just painted this recently. Let's get let's get a metal casing and a plastic casing, and we'll see if that ejects. Again, these are single stack mags. So again, the real one will hold more because it would be a double stack and an extended magazine. This one only goes to about here and it's single stack. So this says it holds 6. Not quite the same as the real deal. That's okay. There we go. Let's find out. Yep. There's one, and oh, but it didn't quite chamber the next one. Gotta push forward. Yeah, it's having a hard time ejecting this middle one. Doesn't like those as much. Let's just check and make sure that that's about the paint job and not the prop. So now we'll try the unpainted one. Same deal. We'll do a plastic and then a metal. See how they go. And I'll put a second metal in so we'll get a little bit better odds. So we got plastic metal with unpainted version. Plastic ejected fine. Metal ejected fine. Plastic ejected fine. Metal ejected fine. Something to know about these, they don't actually chamber around. So if you look at this, it's got a sort of cosmetic feed ramp. I'll do another shot where you can see it a little bit better. But the rounds do not actually go inside that chamber. They don't actually fit. So it's not like a real firearm where when the slide goes forward, it strips around out of the magazine and chambers it, and then it's got to pull it out of the chamber with an ejector. There's actually no ejector really on these. There's no little hook on the side. So really all it's doing is it's using the fact that it's pushing forward enough to clear the lips of the magazine, which only cover the very back part, and as soon as it clears that, the spring should push it up. So I think what's actually happening is it's this magazine that's a little gunked up. If the magazine has a little more oomph to push up, as soon as it clears those lips, it'll pop out. All right, can confirm now that some of the paint is dried and it's a little less sticky. It is working a little better. But anyway, yeah, I picked up a couple of these, and will I ever rent them? I don't know. They're cheap enough to buy that unless I can get good at modding them, I don't see anybody ever wanting to like rent them from me from any price that would make it worth the hassle, when they could just buy their own for, $13-14 bucks. But yeah, you also never know how long these things will be available. Sometimes you get something and then becomes mass produced and is cheap and everyone's got them. And sometimes you don't get them and then they get discontinued. You're like, oh, I wish I'd gotten one while I could. Who knows? So I'll do some more of these later. Again, I've got some more coming up that are definitely like, I wouldn't use that as a prop. And I've got some coming up like, ooh, that's pretty good. Because like I said, we're starting to see different tiers in this category now. So stay tuned. Click subscribe. Watch other videos. I'll have more for you later. Thanks.